100 days out from the midterms, and the political tides in Iowa are turning. And it has to do with water politics. Across the agricultural powerhouse, rivers and drinking supplies are now increasingly strained by runoff. Let me explain to you what is happening. Toxins like fertilizers and livestock waste and other chemicals, too, are building up in these water sources. And what they are doing is making the water unsafe to drink or to swim in. And it's not a new problem, actually. In fact, this has been a concern for decades in Iowa. For many Iowans, it's even kind of the norm. But now, people want change. They're worried about the quality of the state's water and health risks that it poses, obviously, and the deep ties to the state's agriculture industry, the signature industry in Iowa. The fears are not random, though. Listen to this. In recent years, Iowa's cancer rate has soared over the U.S. average, according to the Iowa Environmental Council. Check that out. More than 170,000 Iowans have previously had cancer or currently suffer from it. And the group lists some of the risk factors that could be responsible, like pesticides and nitrate, both of which have been found in Iowa's water sources. And now there is a new face that is joining the fight for clean water in Iowa. His name is Chris Jones, and he built his career studying water. He's a research scientist. He's a lifelong Iowan himself. He spent decades tracking the pollution in Iowa's streams and rivers. And not only that, he spent 40 years of his life fighting for better agricultural practices across the state in response to it. He had a front row seat to all of this, to the things that actually affect water quality. Jones is now the Democratic nominee for Iowa Secretary of Agriculture, and he is positioning himself as a direct challenger to the system that he says he has allowed, that he says has allowed pollution to persist. And his argument is a really blunt one. The way that food is produced in Iowa has consequences that extend far beyond the fields. Water quality and public health, and even the communities themselves, he says, are all tied to those choices. And in a state where agriculture is everything, that message has proven to be actually kind of like politically risky. But like I said, the tides are turning. And as the concerns about contaminated water pour in, no pun intended, Jones is hoping that science and lived reality can cut through decades of silence. Joining me now is Chris Jones, Democratic nominee for Iowa Secretary of Agriculture. It's great to have you.
All right. Thanks, Jacob. Happy to be here.
You have spent, Chris, much of your career studying the water in Iowa. What was the turning point for you that made you decide to run for this position now?
Well, I spent my life studying this, as you mentioned. I've published scientific papers. I wrote a book. And a couple of years ago, I realized if I really wanted change here, that was not going to be enough. If I wanted to see change, I was going to have to run for something. And so here I am.
Laying it all out, like we just did, it's pretty intimidating or scary, I think, for people that are, I'm sure for people inside of Iowa, but even people looking at this outside of the state. Can you explain in a nutshell what are some of the most important things that people should know about this ongoing issue of water quality in Iowa?
Well, it's a symptom of our agricultural system that we have here, where we focus just on commodity grains. We have 70% of our land here in Iowa is covered with only two species of plants. That's corn and soybean. And we're never going to get the water quality that we want. We're never going to get the other environmental outcomes that we want when we have no diversity on the landscape. These are high input crops. They require a lot of fertilizer, a lot of pesticide, a lot of other inputs. And when you have a high input system, some of those inputs are going to get into the water, into the streams, into the aquifers, into the air. And that's what we have here. And now the chicken has come home to roost, and we have the second highest cancer rate in the country.
Yeah, it was unbelievable to read those statistics. The thing about Iowa is that Iowa is a deep red state, which is what interests me so much about your race. You're up against a Republican incumbent who's been elected, I think, twice to this position. How are you reaching voters who might not be inclined to vote for a Democrat, and what lessons might national Democrats learn from, this race for Secretary of Agriculture in Iowa?
Well, I go to my events in rural areas and I talk about common good issues. And growing up, I thought that's what the Democratic Party was about, was the common good. And so when you go and talk to people about that in that context in rural areas, they really don't even see it as progressive. They just see it as common sense. Clean water, it's a quality of life issue. Having a vibrant and prosperous small town economy. That's a common good issue. Keeping your young people in the small towns, not having them leave for distant cities and states, that's a common good issue. And so I think rural people recognize these things as good for them, and they don't even think they're progressive. They just think they're common sense issues for their small town and their other rural areas here in Iowa.
It seems like, to a layman, me, that what you're trying to do to resolve this water quality issue in Iowa is a pretty steep fight. What would you do? What's the first thing that you would do if you were to be elected the Secretary of Agriculture there?
Well, we need some diversification of our farming systems. We need a greater assemblage of crops other than just corn and soybean. We're a net importer of food in the United States right now, mainly because we grow so many of these commodity grains, and we've seen how that system is vulnerable, with the tariffs and other policies from the Trump administration. So we need to diversify crops. We need more oats here. We need more food crops. We need forage crops for cattle like alfalfa and clovers, these sorts of things. The other thing is we need to regulate the corn-soy system. And this has been the third rail of politics here in Iowa for both parties, talking about regulation of the system. The past 2 years, we've restricted water use in Des Moines, our largest city, because the nitrate has been so high in their water. And so 600,000 people have had restricted water use. Well, you can't regulate use of the natural resource downstream and then give license to the industry to do whatever they want upstream with the inputs. It's perverse. And so we need some common sense regulation on the corn soy system.
Let me ask you kind of a nerdy question, because I think that the stat is, according to the Iowa Soybean Association, more than 96% of farms in Iowa are family owned. 96. I mean, that's almost all of them. How do you plan to incentivize families to sort of change the businesses that they have been in for a long time to diversify those crops?
So we have 85,000 farms in Iowa, and that sounds like a lot, but probably only about 20,000 of those control a large majority or a large percentage of the farmed area. And so the other 65,000 are smaller operations. And, when you're farming, say, 640 acres, that's what we call a section in Iowa, and you're doing everything on your farm in terms of conservation, to make sure the water leaving your farm is clean. And then you see your neighbor who's farming 10,000 acres and that person's doing nothing. Well, there's something wrong there. And so I think some regulation here makes sense for some farmers where we level the playing field. The reason we have farmers farming 10,000 acres is because we have no regulation of the pollution. And so they've got all the land tied up. Young farmers can't break in to that career. And so some regulation of the pollution, I think, would present an opportunity to create some land policy changes here in Iowa and get land into the hands of people that are going to take care of it.
Certainly sounds like it makes sense. And when you describe it as you did, as a common good issue, that seems to be like Mayor LaGuardia used to say, I think famously here in New York, there's no Democratic or Republican way to pick up the trash. There are things that we can all obviously agree on, and this seems to be one of them. We would love to continue to follow your race. Chris Jones, the Democratic nominee for Iowa Secretary of Agriculture. Please keep us posted, and thanks for being here.
Okay, thanks, Jacob.
Okay, good to see you.